Melissa Scott's trail cameras might contain clues about the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. RCMP asked her for days of footage as the investigation into the missing children approaches the 3-week mark.
It's scary, especially not knowing what happens. We definitely keep our kids a little closer to home now.
7 minutes ago, the RCMP released a chilling new update on the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan, the two young siblings who seemed to vanish into thin air from their quiet rural community in Nova Scotia. 4 months. This case has been more than just a mystery. It has been a living nightmare for parents, neighbors, and volunteers who refuse to give up hope. Search teams combed through woods, rivers, abandoned buildings, and endless fields. Families hung posters, lit candles, and whispered prayers that these children would be found alive. The story has dominated headlines, fueled emotional debates on social media, and even split the community between those who believed in a possible abduction and others who feared something far more sinister within the home itself. But today, the RCMP's final update marks a devastating turning point. Instead of closure, it has delivered shockwaves. Investigators confirmed that after following more than 480 separate tips, interviewing over 50 witnesses, and re-examining hours of surveillance footage, the case has reached what they describe as a critical conclusion. Yet the details of that conclusion are shrouded in darkness. Authorities revealed disturbing forensic evidence recovered during the investigation, evidence that changes a narrative from a hopeful search to a grim reality. And while the RCMP insists they are being transparent, the way they phrase this announcement has left the public shaken. It wasn't a declaration of rescue. It wasn't even a confirmation of abduction. Instead, it was something colder, something that points toward tragedy, while leaving the exact truth agonizingly out of reach. Lilly was only 6 years old, a child who had just begun discovering the joy of reading, coloring outside the lines, and chasing fireflies in the backyard. She was a kind of little girl who carried her favorite stuffed toy everywhere, a bright spirit with an imagination that filled the quiet corners of her home. Jack, just 4 years old, was a shadow, playful, curious, and brimming with that fearless energy unique to little boys who believe the world is theirs to explore. Together, the siblings were inseparable. They weren't just faces on missing posters or names in police files. They were two innocent children who should have been worrying about recess, bedtime stories, and birthday cakes, not becoming the center of one of Nova Scotia's most haunting mysteries. Their family lived in Lansdowne Station, a small rural stretch of Pictou County where neighbors knew each other by name, and community gatherings were as natural as the changing seasons. The Sullivans' heritage tied them deeply to the Sipekne-Katik First Nation, a connection that later sparked outrage among Indigenous leaders and activists. From the very beginning, critics argued that the authorities' initial response was sluggish, dismissive, and failed to treat the case with the urgency it deserved. For many, it became yet another painful reminder of the systemic disparities Indigenous families face when tragedy strikes. When people looked at Lilly and Jack, they didn't just see missing children. They saw futures stolen before they even began. Kindergarten classrooms that would remain empty, playgrounds echoing with absence. Two little lives that should have grown into something far greater, forever frozen in memory, while the community still asks why more wasn't done when every second counted. It all began on the morning of May 1st, 2025, a day that at first seemed so ordinary. Surveillance footage later confirmed Lilly and Jack Sullivan inside a Dollarama store in New Glasgow, walking with family, appearing happy, calm, and carefree. That footage would become the last undeniable proof of their presence in public. By the next morning, May 2nd, the ordinary had turned into the unimaginable. The children were gone. At exactly 10:01 a.m., authorities logged a frantic missing persons call. The tone of that call, investigators later admitted, immediately signaled urgency and panic. Within just 30 minutes, RCMP officers arrived at the Sullivan residence, combing the property, questioning those present, and trying to piece together a rapidly unraveling timeline. By midday, with fears mounting, the RCMP released their first official public appeal, urging residents to remain alert and to report anything unusual, no matter how small. Later that same afternoon, a vulnerable persons advisory, a rare and serious alert reserved for those most at risk, was broadcast across Pictou County. Phones buzzed. Radio stations interrupted programming. The entire region was suddenly on high alert. What came next was nothing short of historic. The search effort mobilized at a scale Nova Scotia had scarcely seen. Specialized K-9 units scour fields and tree lines. Drones equipped with thermal imaging swept across rivers and ravines. Helicopters hovered above dense forest canopies. Hundreds of local volunteers, neighbors, classmates' parents, strangers who simply couldn't stand by, formed human chains to comb through brush, ditches, and shoreline. For days, the province united in determination, but as hours stretched into nights and nights into days, hope was tested. Not a single confirmed sighting surfaced. 2 children had simply vanished, leaving behind no clear trail, no easy explanation, only heartbreak, confusion, and a haunting sense that something terribly wrong had occurred. Investigators did uncover something that seemed, at first, like it could be the key to breaking the case wide open. In a wooded area not far from where search crews had been concentrating, they discovered fragments of a pink blanket, one that family members immediately said looked strikingly similar to Lilla's favorite. The details made the find even more unsettling. One fragment had somehow become lodged high in the branches of a tree, as if it had been torn away and carried by force or deliberately placed. Another piece was discovered stuffed inside a black garbage bag, discarded in a way that suggested intention rather than accident. Forensic testing was rushed through, with a hope that these fragments might carry traces of DNA, fibers, or even fingerprints. But when the results came back, they delivered no breakthrough. No DNA hit. No conclusive evidence. No clear link tying the blanket to a suspect. Instead of providing closure, the discovery deepened the mystery. How had these fragments ended up scattered like that? Was it evidence of a struggle, a staged diversion, or simply coincidence? The more investigators considered the possibilities, the more unsettling it became. Behind the scenes, the RCMP pushed their investigation into overdrive. They reviewed an astonishing 488 separate tips phoned in by community members and outsiders alike. They conducted 54 formal interviews, each one meticulously transcribed, with parents, relatives, friends, and even the children's biological father questioned repeatedly under pressure. Polygraph tests were administered in attempts to rule out deception. At the same time, investigators pored over endless hours of surveillance footage from highways, gas stations, and local businesses, hoping for even the faintest glimpse of the children after that Dollarama visit. Every lead, no matter how improbable, was pursued to exhaustion. Yet, despite the intensity of the operation, no solid answers emerged, only a growing sense that someone, somewhere, knew far more than they were admitting. While investigators meticulously pursued every lead, the community itself rose to action, turning grief into relentless determination. Telephone poles, street corners, and storefront windows across Stellarton and surrounding towns were plastered with flyers displaying the faces of Lilly and Jack, each image a stark reminder of lives suddenly suspended in uncertainty. Vigils were held nightly, candlelight flickering against the darkened streets, casting a soft glow over faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Families gathered, clasping hands and murmuring prayers, while strangers from neighboring towns and even further afield arrived to donate supplies, food, and water to the volunteers trudging through fields, forests, and riverbanks. Many of these brave souls covered miles of treacherous terrain, slogging through debris and mud left behind by the recent devastation of Hurricane Fiona, often risking their own safety to ensure no stone was left unturned. Yet amid this overwhelming show of community solidarity, not all attention was compassionate. Social media platforms became hotbeds of speculation, some well-intentioned, others cruelly malicious. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and the human need for explanation in the face of tragedy. Misinformation misled both searchers and the public, while some individuals even leveled harsh, unfounded accusations of the family themselves. Every post, comment, and rumor seemed to slice deeper into the already raw wounds of Sullivans. For a family already paralyzed by uncertainty, the pain of not knowing where their children were was compounded by the weight of public judgment. What should have been a collective call to help instead became a minefield of scrutiny and suspicion, leaving the family to grieve, hope, and fear all at the same time, trapped in a nightmare amplified by the very society that should have been rallying behind them. In July, a revelation sent shockwaves through both the community and the wider public. Court documents, heavily redacted but undeniably official, revealed that the RCMP had quietly reclassified the case. The language was clinical, almost attached, stating that the investigation was no longer being treated as criminal in nature. For many who had been following the story closely, this announcement was bewildering, even infuriating. People had expected, or at least hoped for, a breakthrough, a major arrest, the naming of a suspect, a tangible step toward justice. Instead, what emerged was a sobering, almost cruel, reminder how elusive the truth remained. Despite months of exhaustive searching, 488 tips reviewed, dozens of interviews, polygraphs, and hours of surveillance footage meticulously combed, investigators had not found any conclusive evidence of foul play. The discovery of the pink blanket fragments, while unsettling, had failed to provide definitive answers. Witness statements and alibis, no matter how thoroughly interrogated, produced more questions than clarity. Every lead had been followed to its limits, yet the case remained frustratingly unresolved, suspended in a state between hope and despair. To this day, no one has been charged in connection with the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. The RCMP's decision, while procedural, left the public grappling with uncertainty. Families of missing children, neighbors, and volunteers were forced to confront a reality that is perhaps the most difficult of all. Sometimes, despite the best efforts, even the most thorough investigations cannot immediately deliver justice or closure. The case of Lilly and Jack Sullivan remains an open wound in the community, a haunting reminder of innocence lost, questions unanswered, and the enduring pain of uncertainty. The family's reactions have been complex, layered with emotion, suspicion, and the burden of public scrutiny. Stepfather Daniel Martel has maintained a stance of cooperation throughout the investigation, submitting willingly to multiple lie detector tests and even voluntarily requesting drug screenings in a bid to clear his name and demonstrate transparency. His actions have been consistent, almost desperate, as if every measure taken could shield him from suspicion while showing the public and authorities that he has nothing to hide. Meanwhile, the children's mother, Malahia Brooks-Murray, receded from the public eye after her initial statements. Her retreat has only fueled speculation, leaving neighbors, distant relatives, and online commentators to fill in the gaps with their own theories, however unfounded. The community remains sharply divided. Some neighbors express genuine compassion, offering support and holding space for the family's grief, while others are skeptical, whispering doubt behind closed doors and questioning decisions made in the immediate aftermath of the children's disappearance. In countless quiet living rooms, diners, and workplaces across Nova Scotia, the same haunting question lingers in the air. What really happened to Lilly and Jack? Two young children vanished without explanation. A pink blanket was found under circumstances so strange it fueled more questions than answers. Hundreds of tips poured in, hours of footage reviewed, interviews conducted, but still, closure remains elusive. Even with the RCMP's final update removing the criminal label from the case, the horror of unanswered questions cannot be erased. Did the children wander too far into the dense woods of Lansdowne Station, their small footprints swallowed by the earth? Or was there something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this tight-knit community? Perhaps the truth remains hidden, buried beneath layers of uncertainty, overlooked details, or deliberate concealment. Until definitive answers emerge, the disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan will continue to stand as one of Canada's most haunting, heartbreaking, and unsolved mysteries, leaving families, communities, and the nation asking the same relentless question. Where are the children, and will the truth ever be revealed?